Welcome to this presentation, which will help you understand how to do the interview with a psychologist assignment. The assignment is worth 15% of your grade or 15 course points, and it's been slipped to be due April 14th. I believe it was originally due earlier than that. So here's what you need to do. You need to contact a school that has a school psychologist, a counselor, or a social worker. Speak with him or her directly and ask if you can come in and interview him or her. Make sure that you indicate that the purpose of this assignment is for you to learn about their job. It's to learn more specifically how this professional collaborates with teachers, parents, and administrators and how they support students. Be sure to describe the context in your assignment when you start to write it up. So you'll want to record when you did the interview, the date, the time, the school, the grade levels that the school covers, who the interviewee was, the setting, did you meet in the office or in a classroom, and any other relevant details that you think are important. You should take copious notes during your assignment so that you have notes to look back on. And when you start to write your paper up, it should be written as a narrative. In other words, not specifically answering questions or bullets that I'm going to give to you, but presented as a flowing kind of story that you're telling about what you did, where you went, who you talked to, and what was discussed. You should make sure, at a minimum, that you address the following bullet points. You should have an introduction, providing some context that, like we just talked about. You should provide the name of the person, their job description, and previous experiences. So are they a social worker? Where did they work before? Are they a school psychologist? These are different jobs. Provide some credentials. What is their degree in? Where did they earn it? Talk to them about the nature and their contact with families. So when do they talk to families? What kind of contact do they have with families? What is the purpose and the nature of that contact? How they work with specific students. So I don't need names of students, but in other words, do they assess students? Do they conduct behavior management programs with students? Do they deal with students with learning issues or with social skills issues? Find out the nature of their work with students. Find out the nature of their work with teachers. Do they go into the classroom and observe? Do they consult with teachers? What type of support do they provide teachers? And what other professionals in the school they might collaborate with? How do they collaborate with administrators, for example? Be sure to cover their views on medication. So students are often prescribed medications by a doctor, and what is their view of that? Be sure to provide or ask them to about inclusion, which is students with specialized learning plans or 504 plans or IEPs being included in the classroom rather than separated into another classroom. Ask about any recent legislation or technology advances that have impacted their job and what their views are. So maybe they didn't used to use iPads and now they're using iPads, for example. And finally, you're going to do two very important things. You're going to reflect on what you learned and you're going to have a conclusion. So what this means, a reflection is different than a conclusion. A reflection addresses such question as, what did I learn? What surprised me? What did I think I knew but I didn't know? What was incorrect in my assumptions? Anything about learning that occurred. A conclusion is basically a summary of and a closing remark about your experience. So a lot of times what happens is students confuse those two. They give a conclusion but not a reflection. So I want to see both in your paper. As I said, during the interview, take notes. Later, write up the interview as a narrative case study. It should be a minimum of 3 to 4 double-spaced typed pages. It doesn't necessarily have to have a reference or citations from your textbook, but it may. So here's how you're going to be graded. This is the rubric for the project. You can see the context is important. So describing the context in detail, in depth, will earn you an excellent on this. You can see the kinds of things you need to describe. The content coverage refers to the bullets we just went over. So are you going to cover all of them in depth, or most of them, or some of them, or many are going to be missing? What's your reflection piece going to suggest? Is it going to say that you explored the learning experience thoughtfully and learned something relevant to the classroom from the experience? So you could put in what you learned that you could take into your new classroom, for example. And finally, be sure to check your writing and APA because this is a part of this assignment and it should contain almost no errors. Don't forget that there is a permission to observe form in the assignments folder for this. And if you click on a course materials, go to the assignments folder and then look in that folder for interview with a psychologist. You will see the course, you will see the observation permission form. So that is it for this presentation. Please email me if you have any questions.